now we have the important stuff. We're happy to introduce Mike Stagg today to talk about school crossing safety. How appropriate is that topic for this time of year?
Yeah, I mean, especially this time of year, it's super appropriate with all the kids going back in school and you folks out there keeping them safe. We're really happy to have you on here today. Um, just some of our goals that I wanted to talk to you about real quick that we'll hope to cover today is how we keep the kids safe, right? That's our most important job there is the crossing guards, is to keep our kids safe and make sure that they get off to school safely or get home safely. And also, how do you keep yourself safe, right? We also want you to stay safe as the crossing guard, and what we can do to keep you safe out there in the streets. All right. So I think the first thing we want to talk about is the design of crosswalks. Here in the state of Utah, we actually have a couple of crosswalks. And it's important to recognize at which crosswalk you're going to be positioned at. Okay. Are you going to be positioned at a standard crosswalk, which is like your parallel lines, regular open crosswalk that you would see out there? Or are you going to be stationed at a zebra crosswalk? And these zebra crosswalks are specific only for school zones. And this is important to know because the zebra crosswalk, I mean, you'll have your school flashing zone lights, you'll have maybe a hawk system. You might have something in the area versus a standard crosswalk with the parallel open lines that you're not going to have those kind of things. And it is very important that you're aware of what kind of crosswalk you're going to be posted at because there are different rules in the state of Utah regarding crosswalks and the way drivers have to obey those crosswalks. For example, in a parallel open crosswalk or the standard crosswalk, a driver is able to make their right hand turn or their left hand turn through the crosswalk as long as the pedestrians are at least halfway through that crosswalk versus a zebra crosswalk, which means that the whole crosswalk has to be cleared, okay, of pedestrians before a driver can turn into that crosswalk. Now that's important for us to note as crossing guards, because if we're positioned at one of these parallel or open crosswalks, God, we've got to be extra vigilant, making sure we have our stop paddles held high, that we're directing the kids as we need to, and we're stopping traffic as we need to keep ourselves safe and the kids safe. Other things that we have to have are our uniforms and our gear, which is very important. Obviously, you should have a stop paddle, okay, and that stop paddle should be in well repair. It should be something that you could hold easily and that is large enough and visible enough for people to see. Okay, high visibility clothing is especially important. Okay, think of your things like your retro reflective vest. If you can have a hat or pants or something like that, that is also great. These high visibility clothings, they should be provided by your employer. Okay, they have to provide these for you as part of your uniform and as part of your personal protective equipment. So make sure that you have them and that you're wearing that personal protective equipment and your high visibility clothing at all times. We're getting into the time of year where the days are getting shorter. Okay, it's going to start getting darker earlier in the day, and it's going to start getting lighter later in the day. And so we're going to have to make sure that we're visible out there in the roadways. Especially these early mornings coming up here in the fall and in the winter time. God, it's going to be dark outside when you're out there trying to put people through the crosswalk. Make sure you have your high visibility clothing on at all times, especially when it's dark. But even when it's not, when it's nice and sunny and bright outside, make sure you have that high visibility clothing on at all times. Okay. You should also have at least 2 cones. And we'll talk about cones here in just a second and why those are important. But we should also have the proper footwear. Okay. Make sure you have the proper footwear on. Nice, good closed-toed shoes with a good sole on the bottom that's going to be anti-slip and help you so you don't slip and fall. We don't want things out there like flip-flops and sandals and things with open-toed shoes where that you could get an injury just by walking on the road or tripping and falling or having a car fling a rock at your shoe or something like that could hit you in an exposed toe. Hey, make sure you have good high quality footwear that you could wear for these for you're going out on the job. Now let's talk about traffic. Okay, What your paddle does, your paddle will alert traffic to stop. It's important to note that you are not directing traffic. You're not a police officer, okay, who's directing traffic on where to stop and when to go and where to turn and things like that. So as such, you need to make sure you avoid misleading head movements. Okay, misleading head movements and hand movements and shifting of your paddle. Now, what do I mean by that? A misleading head movement could be something as simple as, doing this or doing that, like a jerking movement with your head is a misleading head movement to a driver signaling, hey, I want you to turn this way or go this way, especially if you're in the middle of the intersection holding up a stop sign, you go like this, it might signal a driver to turn that direction. Okay. So you want to make sure that your head's on a swivel, of course. Okay. You want to be looking to the left and to the right and behind you, making sure that you're going to stay safe here in the intersection where you're at, but avoid jerking movements with your head. Those kind of things signal drivers to do something. Okay. Instead, make sure your head's on that swivel. Okay. Avoid misleading hand movements. Okay. A stop signal to a driver in front of you, that's probably okay. Okay. But as soon as you start pointing or motioning like this for a driver, okay, they might obey that signal. Okay. The only thing that you should be signaling to is the foot traffic. Okay. A lot of times verbally is a great way to do that. Letting them know when to cross, hey, come across or whatever, holding a hand out and pulling this way so that let the people on the crosswalk or on the side of the road come across the crosswalk. Okay. Just avoid those misleading movements. Avoid shifting your paddle. So if you're at a stop, avoid moving the paddle like this or like this. Okay. Again, that's just going to alert the driver that you might want them to follow that signal. Okay. So again, we don't direct traffic here. All we're doing is we're stopping traffic and allowing people to cross the road. We only signal to direct the foot traffic. Make sure you keep your head on a swivel though. Make sure you're looking around, always aware of your surroundings, but avoid those jerky movements with your head that may signal a driver to do something you don't necessarily want them to do. Okay. Now, some things when you're on duty to never really do. Okay. Don't bring a chair out into the intersection and sit and direct the kids there, right in the middle of the crosswalk. I've seen it, folks. I've seen people with chairs in intersections directing traffic as a crossing guard. Okay, we don't do that. Okay. Leave the chair on the side. It's okay to have the chair there when people aren't crossing or when you're not actively crossing people in the crosswalk. If there's no children present, there's nobody present at your crosswalk, sure, have a seat, take a load off, okay? But if you've got children approaching, if you've got kids coming over, if you've got other pedestrians coming over to your crosswalk, stand up, meet them at the crosswalk. Don't sit if you have people there or people approaching, okay? Don't eat or drink while you're in the crosswalk. Don't bring out your coffee and your donut into the intersection and while you're trying to direct foot traffic across that intersection, okay? Leave it there on the sideline. Same thing with your headphones, okay? Leave the headphones at home. Leave the AirPods at home, your portable audio devices, okay? Leave them there. Don't have them in your ears. Don't have your headphones on at any time when you're out there. Even if you don't have anyone directing traffic, because you need to be hyper aware of your surroundings, okay? You need to be hyper aware of what's going on around you. So please don't bring the headphones, don't bring the AirPods in. Okay, make sure just leave those at home. We don't want those out with you when you're out working as a crossing guard. Okay, same thing with the books, magazines, and newspapers. It might be appropriate for you to have those, sitting on the sidelines, but I would encourage you not to. Again, we need to be hyper aware of those things. Cell phones. I encourage you to have a cell phone. Okay, I encourage you to have it, but have it in your pocket. And only use it for emergencies. Shouldn't have it out there looking around, trying to catch Squirtle in the Pokemon game. Okay, just leave it in your pocket. Okay, again, we've got to be hyper aware of the things that are happening around us so we stay safe, as well as we can keep the kids safe. Okay. All right, let's talk about weather for a minute. Here in the state of Utah, especially during this time of year, weather changes on a dime, right? There's a saying here in the state. And I think you guys all know it. If you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes and it'll change. Okay. And that's especially true here in the fall time. where we have just these storms come through and things like that. What do they do? What does weather do for us? Well, it decreases our visibility. Okay, it makes it harder for us to see, especially if it's dark at night. We get road reflection off the water on the roads and things like that. What if it's snowing? Okay, that's going to definitely decrease your visibility. Okay, it's also going to increase the stopping distances of the vehicles that are driving on the roads. Okay, we've got to be aware of that. And you have to be aware of your ability to see traffic is going to be impeded depending on what the weather is like. Make sure that we have gear that supports our being able to see everything we need to see. What does that mean? That means no umbrellas, folks. We can't have umbrellas out there when we're trying to cross traffic. Okay, when we're trying to be a crossing guard and have people cross the roadway. Can we have them on the sideline when we're sitting out, we're waiting to enter the intersection? Sure, that's probably okay. But as soon as you take your foot and you step off that curb and you're going to go out into the roadway, put the umbrella down. Okay, we can't have it out there. It's going to cause our visibility to be decreased. And we have to have as much visibility as we can when we're out there in the roads. Okay, no gear that blocks our vision. Now, let's talk about working with kids real quick. No physical contact with the kids except to move them out of harm's way. That's important, right? We can't make physical contact with the kids. No hugs, no holding hands, no, nothing like that. Maybe a fist bump, maybe a high five is okay. But no physical contact with kids unless unless they're in harm's way and you have to move them out of harm's way. Please don't touch the kids. Okay, you just don't want to go down that road. Please be aware of your visibility out there as a crossing guard. Lots of people see you. Please be aware of that. Be aware and don't touch the kids unless it's to try and help to move them out of harm's way. All right. Let's talk about setup. When you first get there for your shift, okay, first thing you should do, first thing, if there's flashing school zone signs in your zone, make sure you turn those on. Turn on those flashing school zone signs before you do anything else. Before you go set up your cones, anything like that, turn on those school zone signs, okay? Flip that switch and make sure you lock it in that on position and make sure you inspect the light function and make sure it's working correctly. Next step is to go and set up your cones, okay? Now take a look at the picture here and see as we go through this next little bit, if you can tell where we need some work here with this crossing guard, okay? Take a look at the placement of the cones. Those cones should be large enough so where they're easily seen. Now, are these cones here? They're not large enough. They barely go up to these kids' knees. Make sure they're large enough to be easily seen by the drivers, okay? At maximum, 45 minutes before school starts is when you should go out and place those cones, okay? Max 45 minutes before. Please don't go earlier than that. 45 minutes maximum before, make sure you go and put those cones out. Now, where should you put those cones? Those cones should be placed in the on either side of the crosswalk, right at the center line of that crosswalk. Again, check out the picture. What do you notice here? Yeah, those cones are right in the walking path where the kids could easily trip on them and other bikes could run into them or whatever. Make sure those cones are placed out of the walking path directly on either side of the crosswalk, right at the center line. Make sure when you're placing those cones, that you hold your paddle high. Now, what do I mean by holding the paddle high? I mean holding it high. Make it visible and make it seen. Anytime your foot steps off the curb and you're going to step onto the roadway, that paddle should be up and it should be held high. Make sure you hold that paddle high, and when you're crossing the road, make sure you're facing oncoming traffic. So if oncoming traffic is coming in a northbound direction, you should be facing southbound. Okay, so you can see the traffic as it's approaching. If you cross the road then to the other side of the road and now the traffic is coming southbound, you need a turn, so you're facing northbound. Okay, again, head on a swivel. Make sure you keep yourself safe out there. But again, and I'll emphasize this many times throughout the presentation today, anytime you step off the curb, make sure the paddle is held high. All right. At the end of your shift, make sure you remove those cones. Again, paddle held high if you're going to go out to the intersection. Check out this guy here. We need some more training, right? He's still in the roadway. The paddle's down. The cars are approaching. Okay. He needs to hold that paddle high the entire time he's in the roadway until he reaches the curb and steps off the curb onto the sidewalk or into the park strip. Make sure that that paddle is held high the entire time you're out in the roadway. Okay. After you remove those cones, turn off the flashing lights and lock them down into the off position. All right. Let's talk about the crossing. Let's talk about the actual cross. Okay. Make sure that when you're crossing that road, when you before you enter the intersection, before you enter the roadway, you look left, you look right, or you look left again. Or you look right, you look left, you look right again. Okay. Whichever way you start, you should go the opposite direction and then end in the direction you started. Okay. Verify that traffic is going to stop. Take your paddle and hold it high. Again, if you step off the curb, take your paddle and hold it high. Never assume the cars are going to stop for you. That's where we've seen injuries before, is assuming that the car is going to stop. They see the intersection. They see the crosswalk. Okay. Make sure you hold that paddle high before you exit the curb so that people can see you. Okay. Don't wait for kids who aren't ready to cross. If the kids aren't ready to cross the intersection, motion for them to wait. Make sure, again, you stay alert and keep your eye on traffic at all times, and always keep everyone in front of you in your field of view. Take a look at the picture again. Does the lady have everyone in front of her? She can't see the kids behind her. Those are the people that she should be taking care of. Where should she be positioned? Yeah, positioned on the other side of that crosswalk, so she can see the kids as they're crossing the crosswalk to make sure that they get across safely. All right. Crosswalks with traffic signals, just some steps here. Make sure everyone assembles one step back from the curb. Make sure everyone walks across the intersection. No riding in the crosswalk, okay? We all know this. No biking, no riding on the scooters. Make sure everybody crosses on the crosswalk on 2 feet, okay? Press that button and wait for the crossing signal. Once the walk signal comes on, wait for it and then check traffic. Again, hold your paddle high if you're going to exit that curb and hit the roadway. Then go and position yourself into the center of that crosswalk and signal the children to wait until you get to your position. Once you get to your position, and only once you get to your position, make sure that you have a final check and make sure that traffic has stopped. Keep and hold your position right in the center of that crosswalk with your paddle held high, facing oncoming traffic. Okay. And then signal for the children to cross the road. Okay. While the kids are in the intersection, make sure you keep that paddle held high. Make sure you keep it high and you keep your head on a swivel to notice and make sure that cars are stopping around you. Now, when the last child reaches the curb, then you can proceed to leave the roadway. But you stay inside that crosswalk, in the center of that crosswalk with your paddle held high the entire time you're there and the entire time that kids are in that crosswalk. Once the last kid exits the crosswalk, feet are now off the roadway onto the curb, sidewalk, or park strip on the other side of the road, then you can start to leave the roadway. Keep your paddle held high. Keep facing oncoming traffic until you hit the curb and can lower your paddle safely. All right. Now, if when you're proceeding through your cross, if the signal changes to do not walk, okay, go ahead and finish crossing the kids. Signal for everyone else to stay. Don't keep crossing or don't invite new children into the crosswalk when a do not walk sign flashes up. Finish crossing those in the crosswalk. And then again, keeping your paddle held high until the last kid exits the crosswalk, then you can exit. Okay? All right. Let's keep going. Let's talk now about crosswalks with what we call a hawk system. These have become increasingly popular here in the state of Utah, and these are a little bit different than your typical crosswalk signal. Okay, they have signals that's going to operate and flash in a yellow, a red, and a flashing red sequence. They only are going to operate when the button is actually pushed. Okay, it's important to note with a hawk system that no flashing school zone sign is there. Okay, you don't have that slow 20 miles an hour school zone sign with a hawk system. Okay, you can't have that. So it's important that we recognize that we've got to be hyper aware inside of these Hawk systems that there's no alerts beforehand to let a driver know that they're in the school zone. Okay. So we got to make sure we push the button, we keep hyper aware, we wait for the light to turn red, and then we could up our paddle, cross that walk into the middle of the intersection, and bring the people across. Okay. Again, same procedure as a regular crosswalk though. Make them stay a step back from the curb. You check for traffic, make sure it's stopped. Into the crosswalk, center the crosswalk, paddle held high the entire time. You get the kids to cross the walk. Again, motion to the kids to cross. We don't motion to the driver. Motion for the kids to cross. Keep your eye on traffic. Once the last kid leaves the intersection, go ahead and keep that paddle held high as you exit the intersection, and then lower your paddle when you hit the curb. Now, we'll talk about some unexpected situations here. Make sure you have a list of emergency contacts. This is where your cell phone is going to come in handy. I would have a favorite programmed into your cell phone of your supervisor and of the police dispatch. Okay, so that you can immediately just one click and tap and go right to that person in case something is not working, or you have a careless or a reckless motorist. Okay, if their lights aren't working, make sure you call your supervisor. The Hawk system is not working, call your supervisor. If the school zone flashing lights aren't working, call your supervisor. Okay, please call your supervisor if you need to. Report negligent drivers to law enforcement. Okay, we don't want something like you see in the still of this video happening to you when you're trying to exit your intersection. Okay, report those negligent drivers to law enforcement. Now, I realize that things are happening and it's happening in a very, there's a lot of stuff going on. If you can get a make and a model and a color of the vehicle, a plate number, description of the driver, things like that, that's a great thing to do. Okay. Pull out your cell phone and take pictures of reckless drivers or dangerous drivers. Okay. Get pictures of the car, the license plate, get what you can. Okay. Because we want to make sure that we get these people reported who aren't taking care inside of our school crosswalks and our intersections. We have had injuries by crossing guards. Okay, slips, trips, and falls are of the utmost concern to us here, as well as being struck by cars and strains from lifting. But slips, trips, and falls are the big ones. So let's talk about some things we can do to avoid those. One of the things we can do is have good, high-quality shoes, and I talked about that earlier. Make sure you have traction that's appropriate for the conditions. Having boots, especially in the winter time, something with good ankle support is great to have. Snow and ice removal may need to be taken care of by you. Okay. Now, your employer should provide a shovel and ice melt and salt and things like that. And it's okay to ask for assistance. Hey, I can't get this cleared in time, or I feel that I'm going to injure myself if I try and move this slushy, wet snow. Can you get somebody over here to clear the sidewalks for the kids, to clear us an area in the gutter so we're not stepping through the snow and the ice and so people don't slip and fall? Absolutely do that. Feel okay to call your supervisor and request assistance to get people out there to help you clear out these intersections and areas where you're going to be walking and working for the kids and yourself to stay safe. Okay. Now, what can we do to avoid being struck by cars? Now, I think the first and foremost thing we can do is, man, we got to stay visible. Okay. You got to make sure you have your retroreflective clothing on. Anytime you're going to enter the roadway, have those retroreflective clothing on. Anytime you're going to enter the roadway, that stop paddle goes up. Your feet leave the curb and hit the roadway, stop paddles up, high vis clothing on. That should be rule number one. Okay. While picking up your cones, make sure that the lights stay on. Make sure your paddle's up. Make sure you keep an eye on traffic. Again, just because you're done, just because the kids aren't coming anymore, doesn't mean your vigilance can drop. Okay, your guard can come down. Make sure you keep your eyes aware, paddle up, high vis clothing on anytime you're in that roadway. Now, when we talk about strains, it's usually as a result of lifting. Okay, it might be twisting and moving your cones. Okay. But whatever you do, keep the things close to you, okay? Keep the buckets, the ice buckets close to you. Keep the cones close to you. Don't twist, maintain good posture. I mean, all those things you know about lifting ring true here as well, okay? If you're setting a cone in an intersection, Don't twist and set that cone down. Okay. Turn your body, set the cone down. Okay. Don't twist. Okay. All right. Lots of stuff out there. Lots of stuff here to be aware of as we talk crossing guards and safety for you and the kids out there. I really just wanted to say I appreciate what you guys all do. I have 3 young kids. Everybody here is a part of the community that helps my kids get to school every day safely. Thank you for that. There's a lot that you do. Please just try and do it right every single time. Okay. Remember to keep your stop paddle and hold it high. Remember to have high visibility clothing on as you enter your intersections. Just do it right every single time so we can keep you safe and the kids can stay safe as well. All right. So do we have any questions, Jason? How are we doing?
If you've got any questions, please type those into the chat box and we can get those answered right now. As of this point, you kept them so engaged that they have a chance to type their questions.
There we go.
We have a thank you for the presentation and all the information. Just a reminder to everybody that's out there, we are recording this session and we will edit it up just a little bit and put it up on our YouTube channel later this afternoon, so you can share that with others. If you've signed up for the webinar, we will send you an email with the link to that presentation. Let's see. After school is out, do you do the 45 minutes before?
Oh, that's a great question. When should you set out your cones for when school is going to get out? Yes, 45 minutes max before. Make sure those cones are set out. Same thing before school and after school.
Great
Just
question.
so drivers are aware that this is coming, that you get things set up and ready for you as the crossing guard getting ready to cross the kids back home.
Awesome. Great question. Thank you. Looks like those are all the questions that we have. Final words, Mike.
No, that's it. I mean, it's an important job you guys do. Just make sure that we continue to do it right every single time to keep yourself safe and keep those kids safe. So thank you for what you do.
We had one other question that popped up after that. Is there a special place to get the high visibility clothing?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. You can go online. If you search, just put it in Google search for high visibility vest or clothing. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them from Grainger.com. There's a lot of different places there online that you can find for this high visibility clothing. Vests at bare minimum is recommended. Okay, vests bare minimum. If you can get high visibility hats to not only protect from the sun but also to be visible, it's a great thing. High visibility pants and long jackets for when the weather's bad is also a really, really good thing. And you can find all those on, Amazon, or just a Google search can get you to where you need to for that.
Yeah. And I believe class 3 would be the appropriate clothing for that, appropriate class of that clothing. So, all right, folks, thank you so much for attending. Mike, thanks for the presentation. Everybody go out and have a safe day.
Thanks, everyone.